Hey everybody, it's Jason with Parallel Reality coming back with you here today with an article from the ADL. It's from September 26th, and it is entitled, Who is Funding U.S. Anti-Israel Groups? And I just thought this was interesting. I am no fan of the ADL at all. Since Trump became president, they're more or less the equivalent of Media Matters, that they just kind of are one of those groups that's like, oh, you criticize us? Well, you're an anti-Semite, because they're a Jewish organization for people that don't know who they are. It's the Anti-Defamation League. And the guy who runs them is a dude named Jonathan Greenblatt, who's an Obama appointee person. I don't remember what he did in that administration, nor do I much care, really. But just to point that out beforehand. But again, I think this is something that is worth saying, because occasionally they do put out something where it's like, oh, you mean you guys are actually doing what your job was intended to do? Okay, good. And just an FYI before we get started with this is an extremely long article, so I'm going to split this into two parts. The second part you will hear tomorrow. I'm just going to record them back to back anyway. I'm going to stop about 40% of the way into this here once we get to like the second section, because it's not an even 50-50 split where things break up or where there's an easy split. So again, it's going to be about 40% of the list will be here, and the other 60% will be tomorrow, so keep an eye out for that. So here's part one. So it says donations to anti-Israel groups, and we're not going to go through each one of the foundations here. You can see this at the very top of the article and how much they've given. I've heard of, let's see who I've just heard of here. I've not heard of Dissenters. I've heard of Jewish Voice for Peace, which they are not. Students for Justice in Palestine, which basically might as well be a terrorist group or a terrorist adjacent group. Because they are not good. Only $500, but still, donation's a donation. There's 5 pages here, so if you want to see this, you can go ahead and click on the arrow to go over. So I'm sure this is going to go into it. So this is where I'm going to go into this part on the left here where it says Jump To. Today, I'm going to go through the introduction and part or number 2 here, which is the major funders of national anti-Israel organizations, and then number 3 will be other funders, and that'll be tomorrow. Same with some of the recipients. So let's just go ahead and dive right in, because I have really not said anything about this yet. So as introduction, the eruption of mass protests and activities across the U.S. immediately following Hamas's terror massacre on October 7th has raised important questions about the funding sources of the anti-Zionist and anti-Israel groups behind the unrest. Increasingly since the attack, such activities have escalated to direct actions, including aggressive and targeted protests, vandalism, property damage, and occupation of spaces, especially on university campuses. Some demonstrations have also featured anti-Semitic messaging and open support for terror organizations. And yeah, I don't know why we can't do something about that, and they just let these kids do this BS. Anyway, it says these protests and activities have often been co-sponsored, organized, and or promoted by the same cadre of organizations, including Jewish Voice for Peace, or JVP, National Students for Justice in Palestine, or SJP, Palestinian Youth Movement, PYM, Palestine Legal, Council on American Islamic Relations, or CAIR, C-A-I-R, and yeah, go look up those people if you want to see a group that might as well be the closest thing to a terrorist, like a Muslim terrorist organization operating on American soil. Adjacent they are. I mean, they actually have some not so good people working for them. There's Answer Coalition, American Muslims for Palestine, or AMP. Samidoun, Within Our Lifetime, is another awful group that I've heard of, or WOL, and others. It says the ADL Center on Extremism set out to chart some of these groups' funding sources to better understand their operations. Amid allegations of other funding sources, including the possible involvement of foreign actors like Iran, per a July statement by the U.S. Director of National Intelligence Avril Haines, this report will focus on tracking funding mainly from tax records and grant announcements. We also know that crowdfunding has been a key component of protest and campus organizing, with local groups and individuals raising funds for students and activists through various platforms. This aspect is not covered in this report. So according to COE research and analysis of 990 filings and other publicly available information, such as grant announcements and grantee lists, some of the aforementioned groups receive money from the same donors who prioritize anti-Israel projects, as well as from progressive and left-of-center institutional funders who view anti-Israel advocacy and education as part of their broader intersectional organizing. A number of them received funding after the October 7th attack. Frequent donors to these organizations prior to October 7th, such as the Sparkplug Foundation, Kiblawi Foundation, Firedoll Foundation, Maximum Difference Foundation, and Tides Foundation, I've heard of Tides Foundation, are well known in the anti-Israel funding space. Others, such as the North Star Fund, use their money for various anti-Israel projects, but these do not represent the majority of their portfolio. Some donors direct their money to specific groups through donor-advised funds, a source of institutional funding, in some cases anonymously. There is nothing particularly nefarious about this practice, but it can be more difficult to ascertain the flow of money from a donor to an organization or project. One such group is the American Online Giving Foundation, a 501c3 organization with a donor-advised fund that dispenses about $500,000 cumulatively to Council on American Islamic Relations, or again, it's CAIR or CARE, chapters, or the CARE Foundation in the fiscal year ending in March 2023, for example. Some groups organizing the protests are fiscally sponsored projects of registered 501c3 organizations that offer their legal and tax-exempt status to the project, which would otherwise not have the capacity to operate, and help with administrative tasks like managing donations. A prominent example of this kind of funding vehicle is Westpac, a progressive nonprofit organization that has served as a major node in the operations of groups like National SJP, PYM, and the Palestinian Feminist Collective. How can you have a Palestinian Feminist Collective? Like, do they not know what, like, happens to women over there? Okay, that's like literally like an oxymoron type group. Yeah, well, they're morons of some kind, right? Says another example is the Alliance for Global Justice, or AFJG, an Arizona-based organization that serves as a fiscal sponsor to several progressive and left-wing initiatives, including Samidoun and the Palestinian Campaign for the Academic and Cultural Boycott of Israel, or PACBI. I love how the names just keep getting longer, and it's like, let's just abbreviate it anyway. PACB, so I guess what we'll call them. Says AFJG has been blocked from collecting donations via credit card companies since February 2023, following what it described as an attack by right-wing media on its financial ties to Samidoun, a radical anti-Zionist group linked to the U.S.-designated terror group, the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, or PFLP. Yeah, see, like, all these seem to be, like, if you're probably going to find out as we go through this that most of these groups are like a step or two away from actually, like, actual terror groups. What was I going to say? There's something else up here that I was going to... go away. It says, yeah, okay, the attack by right-wing media. Yeah, it's just you guys were found out, and then probably people on the right, or just, you know, normal people, decided to report on it. I mean, by normal people, I mean center left as well. Possibly even some regular left-wing people, you know, like, again, regular people. So this is probably just an excuse, kind of, again, like a Media Matters type thing, where it's attack by right-wing media, and it's like, no, it was just, you guys got caught and you're blaming right-wing media, which is what progressive groups tend to do. So then we're on to section 2 here. So again, this is going to be the final section on part 1 here, and we'll do sections 3 and 4 tomorrow. So section 2 is major funders of national anti-Israel organizations for 2023 and 2024. So first is the Rockefeller Brothers Fund. I've heard of these guys too. I mean, not the Rockefellers, obviously, but this fund. The Rockefeller Brothers Fund, or RBF, is one of the best-known private foundations in the U.S. and a longtime funder of anti-Israel activism. RBF is distinct from the better-known Rockefeller Foundation, maybe that's what I'm thinking of, but its funding is sourced from the family. Both are headquartered in New York City. This JVP is a longtime grantee of RBF, and its funding constitutes some of the most significant institutional giving to the group. RBF has given JVP almost $500,000 in recent years, $150,000 over 36 months in 2023, $165,000 over 24 months in 2021, and $175,000 over 24 months in 2019. And if the abbreviations are going to get, like, just weird, because I'm not going to remember all these abbreviations and who stands for what, I'd probably just say do, like, the find function on here, type in JVP, and when it takes you back to the beginning, you can see, like, oh, that means this. So just a hint for you, because that's what I do. If you have an easier way to do it, by all means, use the easier way. So it says Palestine Legal is another notable longtime grantee of the fund. The group was awarded $240,000 from RBF over 36 months in 2023, $150,000 over 24 months in 2021, and $125,000 over 24 months in 2019. Only a minority of RBF grants are awarded to organizations that do work related to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. However, the former program director of peacebuilding for RBF, who left the fund in 2018, explained in 2017 that the foundation sees the conflict as having great importance because of the very deep and direct involvement of the U.S. government in Israel-Palestine. In a December 2023 statement, RBF wrote in defense of some of its anti-Israel grantees, "It is important not to conflate activism that criticizes the policies of the Israeli government with anti-Semitism or challenges to Israel's existence. Several of our partners take policy positions that are critical of the government of Israel, but each shares our conviction that all human life is precious and valued. The RBF believes that the only way to achieve justice and security for Israelis and Palestinians is to bring Israel's 50-plus year occupation of the Palestinian territories to an end and ensure full human rights and civil liberties for all." So basically, you guys are anti-Semites, that you want to get rid of Israel. That's not going to happen, and there is no occupation. Okay, Israelis living on Israeli land that's been, the land of the people of Israel for 3,000-4,000 years. I don't think that's an occupation, guys. You should probably know what you're talking about, because otherwise, if you're saying stuff like what you're saying here, you're just propaganda. So some of RBF's grantees have taken positions opposing Israel's existence, which devalue the lives of Israelis. In the spring of 2024, as encampments and other more disruptive forms of protest swept U.S. university campuses, RBF put out another statement saying it has had no direct involvement in the campus protests, nor have we earmarked funds for them. Some RBF grantees have provided training, messaging, and or legal support to student protest leaders. The fund does not direct the activities of any grantee organizations. In 2022, the most recent year for which 990 records are available, RBF reported that it had $57,831,657 in revenue. I'm just going to abbreviate this. I don't want to say every number each time. It says just about $99 million in expenses, and that is $1.3 billion in net assets. Well, okay then. So you guys have a lot of money. This is the Lannan Foundation. So the Lannan Foundation is a New Mexico-based family foundation established in 1960 that runs a number of programs dedicated to cultural freedom, diversity, and creativity, and supports projects that aid exceptional contemporary artists and writers, as well as inspired Native activists in rural indigenous communities. It says the foundation gave Palestine Legal $200,500 in 2023, $125,000 in 2022, and $100,400 in 2020, according to tax documents. JVP also received $500,000 from the organization in 2023. Notably, the Lannan Foundation awarded Mohammed El Kurd, I've heard of this guy, a controversial writer and activist known for his promotion of anti-Semitic tropes, a Cultural Freedom Fellowship in 2021. Oh, he's a Palestinian, quote-unquote, journalist. I know who that is, yeah. Yes, he is an anti-Semite. It says in 2023, the foundation reported total assets of, say that's a little over $115 million, and total giving of a little over $12 million. The Proteus Fund. Proteus like that X-Men villain? But anyway, it says the Proteus Fund is a philanthropy organization founded in 1994 and based in Amherst, Massachusetts, that prioritizes progressive projects to advance democracy, human rights, and peace. Yeah, if you're progressives, you probably don't do any of those things, but okay. It says the fund claims in a blog post that by April 2024, it had disbursed a total of $700,000 to over 35 grantees and rapid response funds to communities experiencing hate and suppression related to the crisis in Gaza. What exactly hate and suppress? Like, what do you talk? That's a pretty general term or phrase there, but okay. It says in their end of the year report, they claim in November they opened up rapid response grants ranging from $5,000 to $25,000 to U.S.-based community organizations. These included the Arab Resource and Organizing Center, or AROC, a prominent Bay Area Arab and Muslim advocacy and education center that has historically been virulently anti-Israel, the U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights, or USPCR, a leader in the Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions Movement, or BDS movement, which is an anti-Semitic movement, and a fiscal sponsor of the Palestinian BDS National Committee, the Adala Justice Project, an activist group that frequently partners with JVP and SJP, and PYM. Again, a lot of abbreviations there. Use the find function to figure out what they are. I'm not going to go back and try to find them. I'm just going to keep using the abbreviations. Since November 2023, the Proteus Fund said it prioritized projects centered on legal advocacy needs, advocacy efforts such as ceasefire resolutions in municipal, state, and federal settings, activist safety and security, and education and outreach. The fund gave JVP $12,500 in 2022, according to a 2022 tax filing. And in 2022, the Proteus Fund reported total assets of $54.2 million, a little above that, and total giving of just under $37 million. on we go. It says the Foundation to promote open society, FPOS, and the Open Society Institute. And guess who runs this? See if his name. Oh, I see his name already, and you probably do too. I was waiting to see if his name would pop up here. So it says the Foundation to Promote Open Society, or FPOS, and the Open Society Institute are major grant-making foundations funded by liberal financier and billionaire George Soros. There he is. So these foundations have been accused of financially backing groups like SJP via the Tides Foundation. Though Tides does fund anti-Israel groups and other projects through Westpac, the fiscal sponsor of SJP and others, there was no evidence available publicly to show that Soros' foundations reportedly gave funds to Tides that were earmarked for such groups through Westpac. Probably because these guys are so buried in, like, it's going to take like a just basically a miracle from God to figure out who's doing all the funding. But I think you probably could end up doing it. I don't know how you're going to do it, but somebody should find out. But it's going to probably be really, really tough given these guys. But can we... is there any way we can do like RICO charges against the Open Society Foundation? Get some Republican lawyer look into that, because these guys are definitely facilitating crime, given what's happening in some of these riots. But I don't know if that can really be done. But just a thought. It says the Foundation to Promote Open Society gave roughly $20 million between 2016 and 2022 to the Tides Foundation, according to a tally of recorded grants based on tax documents. But most of the grants were earmarked for prison reform in the U.S., LGBTQ plus rights internationally, and civic engagement in the Asia-Pacific region. In some cases, recipients were not specified. The only public record of giving to Westpac is $20,700 in 2012 in matching gifts. Another allegation circulating in recent months has been that Soros' foundations were financing encampments that proliferated across the country in the spring of 2024. The foundation for this claim appears to be based on recurring donations from open society organizations to Education for Just Peace in the Middle East, the overarching organization that are for the U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights, or USCPR, which provides training to campus activists. Yeah, this is what I mean. And if those activists are doing BS, like they're hurting people and stuff, like RICO charges, can't we do that? Yes or no? So it says USCPR has paid campus fellowships, including a 2023 cohort that included some protesters, encampment organizers, and alumni supporters. USCPR told the Washington Post these individuals were not being paid when the encampment started in the spring of 2024. Not sure I believe them, but I guess we're just going to have to go ahead and take their word for it for now. So according to records, Education for Just Peace in the Middle East received funds from Soros' foundations 3 times for a total of $700,000 between 2018 and 2022. Also of note is a reported grant of $225,000 to JVP and $100,000 to dissenters via the Center for Third World Organizing in 2022 from the Foundation to Promote Open Society, according to tax records. And then in 2022, Open Society Institute reported total assets of $5.2 billion and total giving of just under $222 million. Foundation to Promote Open Society reported total assets of just over $10.5 billion and total giving of $485 million. So, like I said at the very beginning, this is where I'm going to stop because this video is probably already fairly long, and part 2, as you can see from just a little scroll here, it's going to be a bit longer tomorrow. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut this off here. So you can, of course, let me know what you think about this right now, about these organizations, and like what I said about Open Society. Should there be RICO charges against them, if it's something that can actually be done? And then tomorrow we will start on the other funders of national anti-Israel organizations from 2022 to 2024. So I hope you'll join me tomorrow. I hope this is at least interesting. You can see like what's happening here. So again, even though I'm not a fan of the ADL, I thank them for coming up with this. So yeah, let me know what you think about this. Join me tomorrow for part 2. Leave comments below, like, share, subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.